was the reason Nabi decided to end her life. But once again, Nabi told him to stay out of it, that it wasn't his place to meddle. Still, Nabi couldn't hold back her anger at Jinuk's harsh words. But Jinuk hit her with something worse. A cruel reminder that her friend would end up dead too. That was the final straw for Kyung Hwi. He couldn't watch any longer. But Jinuk looked him straight in the eye and said, "You'd do the same, if you knew who she really is." Kyung Hwi was left speechless. His mind once again filled with questions. What really happened? Nabi began to recall the tragic event from her past. Back then, she had begged her two best friends to go on a trip with her. But when the day came, disaster struck. A terrible accident occurred. Everyone tried to save themselves, Nabi included. But only she was pulled from the burning bus in time, while her two friends were left behind, trapped as the flames threatened to explode. The accident claimed the life of her friend Jeong. The other, Dawn, had been in a coma for a year. It was because of Dawn that Nabi managed to hold on this long. But now, Nabi was forced to face people who blamed her for what happened. Jinuk and even Dawn's own mother. Unbeknownst to her, Kyung Hwi had overheard everything. Meanwhile, Sulki and Yido met for the first time, under awkward and painful circumstances. Yido had mistaken Sulki for Kyung Hwi, which left Sulki embarrassed and a bit hurt. Overwhelmed with worry for Kyung, Sulki ended up showing the will to his sister. The two of them broke down in tears, realizing how close Kyung Hwi had come to making a terrible decision. But when Kyung Hwi walked in and saw them, he simply brushed them off and walked away. Determined, Kyung Hwi searched online for news of the accident that had happened a year ago. Then he noticed something. Nabi had picked up her pen to write in her diary again. But this time she couldn't put her feelings into words. Only tears fell onto the pages, soaking them in silence. Kyung Hwi was getting closer to the truth. The reason Nabi decided to end her life. Whatever it was, he was ready to do anything to save her. Kyung Hwi sent Nabi a message, asking for just a moment of her time. Nabi agreed, but only to tell him firmly that he needed to stop meddling in her life. But instead, Kyung Hwi reminded her that from now on he would keep interfering no matter what. Their conversation ended as quickly as it began, with Nabi coldly counting down the exact 1 minute he had asked for. The next day, Nabi visited the hospital again, only to be surprised by the presence of Jinuk. What she didn't know was that it was Kyung Hwi who had talked Jinuk into coming. He had begged him to stop running away, and to grant Nabi at least one wish. After all, she had carried the guilt alone for an entire year. For the first time since the accident, Dawn, still lying in a coma, was visited by Jinuk. Shame and fear had kept him away, but now he stayed, softly singing a song she used to love. Just then, Nabi called Kyung Hwi only to catch him red-handed at the hospital. He tried defending himself again, reminding her that he had already warned her he wasn't going to stop. To his surprise, Nabi thanked him for what he did this time. Kyung Hwi, beaming with pride, playfully bragged about convincing someone as hot-headed as Jinuk. But the moment was interrupted by the sudden arrival of Nabi's father. Tired of his daughter constantly blaming herself for the accident, he lashed out in frustration. And Nabi, unable to hold back, cried that it would have been better if she had died that day instead. The words were too much for her father to hear. Kyung Hwi followed her quickly afterward, seizing the chance to tend to her injured leg. He tried to reassure her that her father wasn't angry at her, but simply didn't know how to understand her pain. But Nabi didn't want to hear any of it. She asked him once more to stop following her. Even so, Kyung Hwi had made up his mind. He wouldn't let her walk through this pain alone, not anymore. Nabi still refused to speak to her father. Meanwhile, Kyung Hwi didn't hold back from criticizing the man for failing to understand his daughter. Kyung Hwi pleaded with him not to let regret take over later in life. He reminded him that tomorrow would be Nabi's birthday, and begged him not to leave her alone again, but to be there as her father. The next day, class resumed, triggering memories in Kyung Hwi of the fire that once broke out in their classroom, the very incident that pushed him to the edge the second time. Kyung Hwi had believed he had prevented the tragedy, but it turned out it was another group who accidentally caused the fire. Time seemed to freeze for Nabi, as she recalled the terrifying event that took her best friend's life. The event didn't change either, when Sulky became the unfortunate victim of a fire extinguisher blast, deliberately triggered by Ki-ho. At that moment, Kyung Hwi remembered, it was today that Nabi had been on the rooftop too. Ironically, his cowardice that day, his fear of ending his own life, was what unknowingly saved hers. And now, just like before, the past seemed to repeat itself. Nabi was truly there again, standing on that rooftop, ready to do the same thing. Kyung Hwi, overwhelmed with emotions, lashed out at Nabi for letting herself suffer alone for so long. But Nabi believed it was the punishment she deserved, for causing Ji-young's death and Daeun's coma. She had held on for so long, but now it was time to see her friends again. Maybe in death she could find forgiveness. Kyung Hwi tried to shake her from that mindset. He told her what happened was an accident, that sometimes in life, you lose your way, but when that happens again, he asked her to stay where she was, and he'd find her, no matter where she ended up. He begged her to stay alive, because she was the reason he was still here today. After everything that had just happened, things between Kyung Hwi and Nabi became awkward and oddly shy. But soon, their attention turned to Sulky, who now seemed to have taken Kyung Hwi's place in this unfortunate fate. Sulky was devastated, insisting he'd transfer schools after the humiliation he just went through. That's when Nabi approached, and cheekily offered to embarrass them all even more. Her unexpected offer jolted Kyung Hwi back to his senses. It hit him, fate doesn't just vanish. Even if he tries to change it, it simply shifts to someone else. Now Kyung Hwi began to worry. If his fate could move to Sulky, could Nabi's suicide, her fate, somehow fall onto another person too? Even the smallest events couldn't truly be changed. They just found another target. So this time he took matters into his own hands. Instead of letting things spiral again, Kyung Hwi turned the tables and embarrassed Ki-ho right there on the school field, making him the new laughingstock. But of course, in classic Kyung Hwi fashion, he realized far too late that the hand he had been holding wasn't Nabi's, it was Sulky's. After they stopped running, Kyung Hwi finally realized what had just happened. Sulky too admitted he didn't know why he had done it. Sulky was touched by what Kyung Hwi did for him, but Kyung Hwi's eyes were fixed only on Nabi's smiling face. To commemorate the day, Sulky suggested they go on some rides together. That's when they unexpectedly ran into Yi-do, who happened to be working there. While Kyung Hwi was busy protecting Nabi, Sulky had to struggle alone on the terrifying ride. Seeing Sulky's pitiful state, Yi-do stepped in and pulled him away to hang out with her instead, giving the couple some space. Today, Kyung Hwi felt genuinely happy watching Nabi's face shine with joy. Nabi couldn't believe Kyung Hwi had actually pulled Ki-ho's pants down like that. It still made her laugh. Tonight, she writes in her diary again, pouring out how happy Kyung Hwi makes her feel. But deep down she was also scared that this happiness could vanish in an instant. Only 2 days remained before Nabi's death, and Kyung Hwi still hadn't discovered her true reason for ending her life. Following Kyung Hwi's advice, Nabi's father finally made time for her birthday. To Nabi's surprise, her dad even thanked her for being born, something she never expected. They finally showed each other the affection they had been holding back for so long, hoping to erase any future regrets. Later that day, Nabi visited Ji-young's resting place with Kyung Hwi. Boldly, Kyung Hwi declared he was good enough to be Nabi's boyfriend. While Nabi went to the restroom, Kyung Hwi noticed her phone ringing. Then it hit him, this was the day Nabi had become one of Ki-ho's victims too. He answered the call and learned that Daeun's condition had taken a sudden turn for the worse. That was it. That was the reason Nabi ended her life. Seeing Nabi's bright, carefree smile, Kyung Hwi couldn't bring himself to break the news. So instead, he broke her phone on purpose. And he kept postponing it. Throughout the night, he chose not to tell her. Deep down, he feared something might happen to Nabi, because tonight she wasn't even supposed to be here. Trying to stay in the present, he gave Nabi a birthday gift. A butterfly hairpin symbolizing her name. The happiness Kyung Hwi gave her led Nabi to kiss him on the cheek as a thank you. But after waiting years for this moment, Kyung Hwi wasn't about to stop there. While Nabi was smiling brightly, Kyung Hwi couldn't shake off his uneasiness. He went back to read the newest entry in Nabi's diary. She poured her heart into words, expressing how truly happy she was now that Kyung Hwi had come into her life. Thanks to him, she finally found the courage to look back at her memories with her two friends. That was when she picked up the phone. It was Jinuk calling her home. The next day, Kyung Hwi waited and waited, but Nabi never showed up. He rushed to check on her at school, and that's when it hit him. She had found out everything. In his panic to reach her, some bullies blocked his way, unwilling to let him go. Kyung Hwi was left struggling and helpless, while Sulky stood by, frozen in fear. But this time, Sulky didn't want to be a coward anymore. Meanwhile, Kyung Hwi had no choice but to run as fast as he could. He had to get to Nabi. At the same time, Dawn was declared dead, after lying in a coma for a year. Once again, Dawn's mother blamed Nabi for her daughter's death. Those words brought Nabi back to that dark place. Once again, she found herself standing at the edge. While Kyung Hwi, desperate, still hoped she would wait for him. Kyung Hwi received a call from Nabi. She told him about Dawn's passing. She also confessed, at first she had wanted to die too. But because of Kyung Hwi, she no longer had the desire to do so. Kyung Hwi felt a wave of relief hearing her say it. Nabi wanted to live for him. That's when he spotted her across the street. Terrified something might happen to her, he stepped forward to reach her. But perhaps, what's meant to happen will happen, whether it changes form or falls on someone else. And this time, Kyung Hwi chose to take her place, and met death first. Years later, or rather in the present day, a young high school girl caused a scene at the hospital after her failed suicide attempt. Nabi, now a doctor, gave her some oddly honest advice. To use a skipping rope next time instead of raffia string, since that would obviously never work. On her birthday, Nabi once again visited Kyung Hwi's bedside. Still in a coma, he couldn't answer, so she answered for him. "Where's my birthday greeting, huh?" Back in the past, Sulky handed her a letter, one that Kyung Hwi had written in case he was gone someday. In it, he revealed the truth. He had come from the future just to save her, and if she was reading this now, it meant he had succeeded. He begged her to keep going, no matter how hard life gets, because now, she would be the one carrying on his life in the future. He reminded her, Nabi had saved him first, so now he just wanted to return the favor. He closed the letter by expressing the love he had always carried for her. After accepting her daughter's death, Dawn's mother, through tears, asked Nabi to be strong too. Even now, the only thing keeping Nabi strong and going is Kyung Hwi. And deep down, she hopes for a miracle, that one day he'll come back to life too. That miracle came when she stepped out of the room. Kyung Hwi opened his eyes and smiled because he did it. He saved her, and in doing so saved himself too.